Tree Community Christian School, founded in 2002, is neutral in the election process, in that the school as a nonprofit does not vote. We are happy to host this Meet the Candidates night. I was also told to mention that we have a softball and a baseball field in a building. We're going to build a high school gym next door and hope to form leagues. Yes, including pickleball, for those of you that asked me.
Yeah.
For community to enjoy, so we can do some community activities on campus now that we're in the city of Portland. I am Dr. Moran, the school's president. I am also an attorney. I've acted as a local municipal judge for 28 years and enjoy teaching U.S. government and mock trial every year. So it was my honor to accept the request to MC this evening. Before we begin, let me give you a brief history. Before 1836, there were no incorporated cities in Texas, only settlements. With the Republic of Texas came laws incorporating cities in the state with city charters only granted by the legislature until the constitutional 1912 Home Rule Amendment, which launched many cities exceeding 5,000 in population. For those under 5,000 in population, the legislature passed policies to allow for general law cities which act and organize according to state law. Texas ranks third among the states in the number of local governments. According to the Comptroller's Office, Texas has more than 1,200 incorporated cities ranging from the size of Houston at more than 2.3 million residents to more than 400 towns with populations of fewer than 1,000. That's us. Article 6 of the Texas Constitution gives each of you the right to vote. That is what brought you here today. After the initial meet and mingle that began at 6 p.m., we turn to candidate presentations. Candidates will draw numbers for speaking order. Each will draw topics provided by the city secretary here, Janice Shelton, and will address you, their town authority constituents. We will commence with the mayoral candidates, followed by the council member candidates. Let me list those in alphabetical order. Mayor, Haley Dennis, Tara Sinkovich. Council, Tom Anderson, Jonathan Blake, Ivy Campbell, Terry Fowler, Mike Jaffe, Jennifer McFarland, Patrick Smith, Chad West, Simeon White. All right, let me first begin with speaker order. Got two little yellow ones for the mayors and then nice purple ones for the council candidates.
I like the tone.
Alphabetical order is always the same. The A's always go first, and then the Z's always go last. So we had to do something, right, to make it somewhat neutral and fair. All right, the next thing I'll do is I'll let you draw your first topic. And I understand that you're to speak with introduction for 3 minutes. So why don't we go ahead and do that, then we'll draw topics. So we'll start with the mayoral candidates. Whoever drew number 1 gets to go first for your first 3 minutes. Maybe I'll put the podium down a little bit. Is that in your face? Is this more move the whole thing over sideways? Can you see her better now?
Well, hello everyone. I'm Haley Dennis. I have lived in the same house. I grew up in the same house my entire life in Union Valley. All growing up, I would say, gosh, I can't wait to get out of this small town. Well, I graduated from Roy City High School in 2011 and moved to Fort Worth to attend college at TCU. And pretty much every single weekend of my college career, I came home to this small town that I could not wait to get out of. My mom is here to vouch for that for me. And then, of course, I ended up marrying my husband, Matthew Dennis, whose family is a poetry legacy here. And now we are raising our 2 kids here in this small town. It's funny how life comes full circle. And before, I couldn't wait to get out of this small town. Now I am here, and I want zero growth and want to preserve our small town as much as possible. Yesterday, I had no idea what I was going to get up here and speak about today. So instead, I started playing outside with my daughter, and I was teaching her how to plant flowers from seeds. And then I was trying to explain to her that, you have to take care of the seeds and we have to water it so that way it can grow into a flower. And it reminded me that we are planting the seeds now for the future of poetry. But the seeds aren't what's important, and it's all the different elements, like the pot that it goes into, the soil, and the maintenance that we put into those seeds that will make it flourish. So how does this relate back to poetry? Well, we as individuals are all those elements. And each one of you that's here tonight or watching online, you're doing it because you care. You care about this community. You care about the direction that it's going in. It should be a community that is going in the direction that we, as neighbors to one another, steer it in together. You each have a story and your own passion for keeping poetry, and we know the poetry that we know and love, alive. I'm here to listen to each of those and to make decisions with you as a community to help keep poetry the best kept secret. My husband and I are raising 2 girls, a 2-year-old and a 5-month-old. I've got skin in this game. Home is something that's very sentimental to me. I brought both of my girls home to the same house, and I hope that my girls will get to say that they grew up in the same house that their entire lives, like I got to. So here I am raising the next generation of poetry, and they will get to see the fruits of the labor that we all put in today. I hope that if you've been sitting on the sidelines, I hope that you'll join me and we can all work together to make poetry the best kept secret around. Thank you.
In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your direct your paths. Proverbs 3:6. Poetry is different, beautifully different. In my 2 years as mayor, I can tell you that we are not Mayberry. We are not Union Valley either. We are beautifully unique poetry. By God's marvelous grace, we missed a huge bullet. I believe we incorporated it just the right time. While we missed the bullet of Terrell, we still have much work to do. We have created an amazing website, one in which even our attorney and other mayors have complimented for its transparency. Even though we do not have to, we video every meeting. We provide a line-by-line expense of each item we purchase for the town. Secretary Janet has said she's never seen so much transparency. Just completed, our mid-year budget versus actual shows that we are over 10% on revenue and 13% under on expenses. That's fabulous. For over a decade, I've served as president and chief financial officer for a company which my husband and I began in 2010. I've handled every aspect from human resources, payroll, financial reports, and contracts. In 2015, I was also trained in community emergency response. For the past 2 years, with the help of the council, I've been starting this town from scratch. I've worked very hard, and if you're looking for perfection from any leader, that does not exist anywhere in this building. Just as the very floors of this school were something that my husband and I poured ourselves out for and contributed to, we have poured ourselves out for this town. My heart is for good for this community. Folks think I'm raking in from this town. Nothing could be further from the truth. You can ask my bookkeeper. In 5 years, I've taken no pay or dividend of any kind from this store. We provide jobs and a service to the community. I do enjoy people, and my favorite thing is interacting with citizens. Although the incorporation won by 74%, the naysayers have been trying to lambast me for trying to help this town. I believe the people of poetry are better than that. A critical heart is not a loving heart. Let's try to be more loving and kind in poetry. The facts are that in my time as mayor, the yellow signers have tried to rip apart this town because they didn't like the outcome of the elections or worse. Now, I'm sure they will backtrack on that. We now have several on the stage who've supported disincorporation. They put this town through hellaciousness this past 2 years. Instead of working to make the town better, they have been very divisive and thrown a lot of mud. I would ask that you not support folks who've been skirting the will of the majority. While they have the First Amendment right to do so, it has not been right for the majority. Someone who's divisive will remain divisive in nature. Where they have some discord, let's not reward that. We've already have enough diversity on the council and have plenty of Poetry Proud candidates. We have accomplished much, and our current council has been very thorough. I encourage each of you to go listen to the online meetings, read the Poetry Post, pay attention to how your council has voted. Remember, the council makes all the ordinances. They put me to work. I must chair and keep the meetings orderly, but it's hugely important that to get things moving, they can work together.
3 minutes.
Differences are good, but divisiveness would stymie everything. I humbly ask for your vote come May 6th.
All right, we will begin with an opening remark from candidate councilman number 1. Okay. If you will first introduce yourself, and if those of you will keep your comments and things to yourself as we listen to the remarks. Thank you.
Okay, for those that don't know me, my name is Mike Jaffe. My wife and I have lived in poetry for quite a number of years. I have had the pleasure of being on the council for nearly 2 years now, and was one of the people in the early days that started the conversation about incorporation. So I wrote my remarks down because I can talk and I don't want to miss my point, so I'm going to read these, so please bear with me. I believe the primary duties of the Poetry Town Council and Mayor are to protect the citizens, maintain our roads, and enforce our borders. Every decision we make in life brings consequences, some good and some bad. The same is true in government. And I would add that since these decisions affect other people, every decision the council makes is likely to make some people happy and others unhappy. The challenge, in my opinion, is the balance between the two, which is why I believe it's critically important to elect the right council members and mayor. If their motives are selfish or lopsided, their leadership will support that. If they are willing to listen to others, even when their opinions are contrary to theirs, and give them consideration, they are more likely to make decisions that will lead to a more universally supported outcomes. I am reminded of the words of Paul in Philippians 2:3, which read, "Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves." This isn't easy to do, but I believe is paramount to being an effective political leader. Thank you.
I'm Ivy Campbell. Finally, all of you, be like-minded, be sympathetic, love one another, be compassionate and humble. 1 Peter 3:8. My name is Ivy Campbell, and I'm running for council member for the town of Poetry in this May 2023 election. 77 years ago, a small town in Northeast Texas was rechristened for its poetry invoking magical springtime that we still witness today. I grew up in the DFW Metroplex, but spending my summers at a church camp in Wills Point, I always dreamed of starting my own farm and living in the country in this beautiful part of Texas. I want to give you a sense of who I am and why I'm here today. You may have seen my family and I out clearing my front fence line of ever-invasive brambles. I have chicks in a crib-turned brooder in my front living room, more chicks pipping in the incubator on my kitchen counter, cows with round bellies getting fat on new green grass, and my bee yard is taking shape for the hives I pick up in a couple of weeks. I haven't lived here for generations, so I can't speak to the memories of what was, but I fell in love with the poetry I see now and the country life which I've always yearned to live. Next week will mark 5 years in which I've been living the backbreaking dream on my small ranch in Poetry with 3 amazing young men, my boys, Noah 22, Levi 20, and Luke 17, and my dad, Malcolm, sitting back there in the bleachers. He would probably attest to the fact that I've got farming in my blood. My grandfather was a farmer and a preacher. I'm a Marine, and I now work in the telecom industry as a network security engineer. I have degrees in management and information technology. I spent most of my life working for or with government entities, from the U.S. Marines to 911 dispatcher for Garland, recycling coordinator for one of the largest boroughs in Alaska. I've watched and participated in communities that make amazing strides through persistence and dedicated volunteer efforts. Should you favor me with the opportunity to represent you on your town council, our town council, I will listen closely to your vision and do my best to be your voice in our small town. I will work diligently with other council members to keep government rules and regulation to a minimum, to maintain our roads through county assistance, grants if possible, and Poetry's amazing local volunteer efforts. I believe in maintaining the country way of life. That is why I moved to the beautiful small town of Poetry with a small volunteer-based government and with even smaller property taxes, preferably none at all. Should I be elected, I will uphold and protect this way of life for my neighbors, friends, and family. I want Poetry to be a legacy I can pass down to my children and grandchildren. Thank you for your consideration.
Good evening. Thank you guys for giving your time to us. I'm Jennifer McFarland. The first thing I'm going to say, I'm not a politician. I don't know how to play political games of bash here, bash there, accuse. I'm not doing it. I believe in leading with kindness. I have a passion for people, and the people in this community are at war. There is a disagreement, and it's time for us to come together as a community. I'm very passionate about this. There hasn't been much discussion about a property tax other than we don't have one. We may never need one. But it has come time to get a handle on finances. And if there's going to be one, every person in here who's retired or facing retirement, we need to start planning for that now. We need to secure the budget. We need to be considerate of each other. We need to learn to listen. I've been guilty of it myself. I'm not proud of all of my behavior. I have supported disincorporation because I believe that there's a great number of people who have not been represented. I do believe the majority is going to speak now. My biggest passion is children. My biggest worry in this community is, what are we teaching our children? What good is it to leave land and businesses to our children and our children's children if they don't have neighbors to support them? If they can't go into the country store, feel welcome. That's what we're passing on to our children. And make no mistake, the children of this community are learning from us. I stand to improve. I promise, as a council person, I'm bringing my best, and I will be the example I expect to see in other people. I will expect the best from every one of you, whether you are on the council or not. And please don't misunderstand. I'm not standing here saying, vote for me, vote for me. I can give you a rundown of my resume and tell you I'm an educator. I've taught all the way through college. I'm a servant. I'm passionate about people. I'm passionate for people. Of agreement, disagreement. I'm most passionate about our future. I believe our children are our best resources. And we can't ever reverse the damage we're doing by letting them see us bicker in this community. So I want to end this with my favorite quote by Somerset Maugham. It's a very funny thing about life. If you refuse to accept anything but the best, you very often get it. I will expect the best from every single one of you that is elected, and then in turn, as you participate in the community. I will expect the best, and I will always lead with kindness. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tom Anderson, and if you can't hear me, please raise your hand. I'm running for a re-election for the Poetry Council. I'm currently the mayor pro tem, and I also sign checks for the town along with the mayor and Simeon White. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, in case you don't know, I was born in 1948 and raised in Edna, Texas. Graduated from high school in Edna, went to A&M, got a degree in chemical engineering in 1970. Got married to Linda Robertson of Odessa in 1970 as well. Got an MBA from Lamar University in Beaumont. I'm a registered professional engineer. I've lived 21 years in poetry. We moved here in 2002. Before that, I lived 18 years in Sunnyvale and 7 years in Saudi Arabia. My wife died, Linda died in 2012. In 2013, I married Evie Harper, who has been my wife since, and she was a widow. Her husband died in 2012, 2 weeks after my wife, actually. They moved to poetry in 1995. Work, after I got out of A&M, I worked in refineries in Port Arthur and Cincinnati, refinery operations. I was a unit supervisor. Also worked for Mobil later in refinery planning economics. And in Aramco, I worked in long-range facility planning for refineries, gas plants, terminals, pipelines, and I even worked on plans for war and terrorism disruptions. After that, I worked 27 years as an international petroleum consultant in Dallas. I primarily worked on refining evaluations, acquisitions, mergers, litigations, performance assessments. I retired in 2011 from a consulting company where I was president so that I could take care of Linda, who was ailing at the time, and she died in 2012. My goal really is to finish what we started in 2021, 2 years ago. And at that time, the goal was to get the town up and running, which was a huge challenge for all of us on the council. As what we're looking at now over the next 2 years, or at least my objectives are three. One is we now passed the sales and use tax, and so we're going to have money, real money coming in for roads, and we need to begin major road work over the next 2 years using our sales and use tax. And I think we have plans for that of how we want to do it, and that's a challenge. Also, we need to finish the town hall. It's in its current location. It actually is there's a few things left to do before we can move in, and I think that's important. The third thing is I think initially we had 4 or 5 hour council meetings, which I think was a beating for everybody on the council as well as the citizens. We need to have more efficient and productive council meetings and get it down to a more reasonable time. And more effective use of our time. I consider a lot of it as a waste of time. My objective for poetry is to keep the rural environment. I like the trees, like the open spaces. I like the idea that we were able to somewhat stop Terrell and later possibly Royce City and Rockwall from incorporating this. And so to me, that's part of the life here. I like the idea of keeping it like it is, at least for as long as we can. And who knows down the road. I want to thank you for attending this and listening, and appreciate your time, and appreciate your thinking about the needs of poetry. Thank you very much.
I just want to make sure I want to do something sloppy. All right, yeah, I sure am.
Show us pull right there. We're gonna time how long the thing took so I can wrap it up.
I'll raise my hand if you want 15 seconds before you need to calm down.
I really appreciate that. Let's see how close we have to be here. About that close, maybe? Can we all hear me? All right. Well, I'm Simeon White. I've been your councilman for the last couple of years, and I'm a local businessman here in Poultry. I've lived here for 15 years, which may not be a lot compared to some people. You know, I like that about our community, that 15 years is on the lower side for a lot of us. I'm a Christian. I'm an Eagle Scout as well. I've always been involved in community stuff and volunteering. That's why I've loved being here for Poultry. Kind of what I'd like to focus tonight is what we've done, and specifically some of the stuff that I've done, because we can get up here and we can talk about all these grand things that we want to do and all these, you know, how great I am and how y'all should vote for me. But, you know, I don't want to just talk the talk. I want to walk the walk. So, or as scripture would say, you'll know them by their fruits, right? So I'd like to talk about a couple of things we did. Number one for me is there was a thoroughfare coming through that Kaufman had in place that was going to see 1565 add another road to it, another road come through Poetry. 986 was going to upgrade to a 4-lane road. There was even a 6-lane planned highway here in Poetry, if you can believe that. And I included that information that the county had planned in some of my packets. I didn't print out a lot, but they're over there at my little stand there. The county had this big plan, this big old expansion, kind of aggressive development plan for Poetry because they wanted to encourage the development. Kaufman County is growing big. And myself and Mayor Sinkovich went down to the county and fought that tooth and nail. It was a couple hours meeting, I think it was. It was a little while ago. But we were actually able to stop that as a community. They're not going to put in those new roads. They're not going to upgrade our roads to make way for big development. We were actually able to stop that completely. So it's these sorts of things that I like to point out to say, you know, I'm not just saying I'm for keeping Poetry the way it is. I'm actively fighting for it. And the other thing that's really important to me is property taxes, which I'm not a big fan of on any level, by the way, but here in Poetry, we don't need to add any more. We've got a lot of citizens that are on fixed incomes, a lot of our neighbors, and they can't take an extra few hundred, really for some people, thousands of dollars every year. Property tax should not be an option. It shouldn't be something that the council toys around with or throws out there, in my opinion. I'm very strongly opposed to that. No matter what happens, we don't want property tax, and there are ways to fight it. Like working with the counties for our roads, which are going to be our biggest expense down the road. We're no longer paying for materials, we're no longer paying for machinery, and we're no longer paying for, thank you, 15 seconds, I'll wrap it up. And we're no longer paying for the workers, but we're paying for fuel and material. So we've been able to save a lot, and I hope if you like what I've done for the town and want to continue to see the sort of work that I've been doing, I hope you honor me with your vote May 6th. God bless. Thank you, everybody.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Hello, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Chad West, and I'm running for town council. You know, that's a sentence I never thought I would ever say in my entire life. Never planned to be a politician, planned to move to Poetry. My wife and I moved out here 10 years ago. My wife for 23 years, I gotta make sure I say that. And we came out here, my wife and I met each other through horses, and we've always lived a rural lifestyle, and that's what really sold us on Poetry. Growing up in a small town, the small community feel of this area, the wide open spaces, the ranching, agricultural lifestyle, and I made a comment to one of the people that stopped by to visit. You know you're rural when you actually care about the quality of the dirt your house is built on. You know, before I lived here, I lived in Ennis, and can't tell you how happy I was to get on sandy loam soil and get off of that black dirt. You know, we moved here because of all the uniqueness, the history, the quiet way of life, and that's what we intend to do, and that's what I intend to fight for. I chose to run for town council with the goal of sustaining Poetry's uniqueness, its history, its rural lifestyle. If these are the things, because these are the things that drew us to Poetry, and I would imagine that for most of you is what drew you to this area as well. You know, most people run for political office to push for unwarranted change, progress. That's not what I'm for. I want to try and sustain and keep Poetry the way it looks today for as long as we possibly can. You know, I do have an accounting degree, and I also have a law degree. I've also worked in executive leadership with Sherwin-Williams Paint Company for the majority of my 26 years. Currently have the responsibility for 7 sites in 6 different states and manage a budget of $100 million annual and have 726 employees. All of that and $2 will get you a cup of coffee. You know, at the end of the day, I've met a lot of people that are book smart but don't have a lot of common sense. But I do have a track record of being able to help from an accounting standpoint, as well as explaining legal matters. And I really just want to try and help this town increase the transparency and really put together a long-term plan to face the biggest challenge that we have out there. And that's how we're going to pave new roads and maintain the roads that we have. Okay. If given the opportunity, I will work to serve all citizens of Poetry. I will listen and strive to protect and preserve what makes this town great. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Terry Fowler. I currently serve as one of the 5 councilmen. 2 years ago, around the same time, I sat on the stage having no idea what I was getting into. Way more than I could even imagine. I just knew that I wanted to be a servant for this community. I've always subscribed to the thought that none of us is as good as one of us. So with that groupthink mentality, y'all elected the council, and I've worked diligently with the groupthink mentality. 2 years ago, what I thought I wanted, and it still remains to be true, was I wanted to build this town on the ideas of our citizens. I realized that we had the unique ability to build the town of our citizens' desires. Many people have spoke about that tonight. It's a resounding theme that we want to keep it like it is, and with that, there comes ordinances, and there comes legal documents to protect that. I want to be your representative. I want to hear from you. I think I've said that so many times, but it is my MO in life, is I am a listener. I don't think any good representative can come up here and enforce their way and not get some pushback. But if I hear from you and the resounding themes, that resonates, and it's going to resonate with everybody. So tonight I challenge y'all as well. I challenge y'all to reach out to the individuals during this candidacy, during the elections, and even after the election. Reach out to everybody. I recently asked a non-incumbent candidate why they chose to run for council. Their response was, I wanted a voice. I continued the conversation because I felt maybe I had failed to listen to our citizens. I asked the candidate, have they reached out to me or any of the other candidates with their concerns? And their response was no. I can honestly tell you that you have an ear with me. I have many out there who can attest for that. I admittedly know that I don't have all the answers, but I will work, and I have worked, to be diligent to find those answers. I do not take things at face value. And if you know me, you know that to be true. I have fought for citizens' rights to be heard, and I will continue to fight for that. We have secured our boundaries from Terrell and other cities with a vote in 2020. Wasn't that what we feared in 2020? Now we must focus on how to protect our atypical town. Atypical because we are not like other cities. We don't want population growth. We don't want development.
15.
I'm going to rush along. I just want to share a quick text that I text with a citizen that has a generational family out here too. This sums up my political stance. I want zero growth. I want zero new businesses. I want zero housing developments. I want zero light industry. We are losing our precious ranch lands. You say Tom? Sorry. Thank y'all.
Hello, Poetry. I'm Patrick Smith. I'm a lifelong resident of Texas. I attended the University of Notre Dame and obtained a bachelor's degree in '81. Thereafter, I was hired by the Dallas Police Department where I worked through '85. My wife Shelley and I were married in '86 and had been blessed with 3 children and 2 grandchildren. After leaving the police department, I attended South Texas College of Law where I graduated with honors. I was hired as a briefing attorney by the Texas Supreme Court and worked there through '89. In '98, Shelley and I moved our family to the Poetry area. Some of my fond early memories of Poetry include the way people would wave at each other when they were driving and neighbors who gladly helped each other out. It always brought a smile to my face when I would see the gentleman who traveled up and down the sides of 1565 on a wagon drawn by 2 donkeys. We have loved living in the poetry community and don't want it to change. 2 years ago, at a meeting similar to this one, then candidate Vinson indicated the real guidance, the real power must come through the citizens. We need your voice to be heard. Without your continued direct input, government can turn not to be your protector, but to be your tormentor. And your participation is required to keep it tame, so that the people, we the people, retain our power. It has been discussed publicly that some citizens are afraid to go into the temporary town hall because it is inside the feed store. Some citizens indicate to various candidates they will vote for them, but they are afraid to put their candidates' signs in their own yards. Citizens have indicated they are afraid to speak up at council meetings. How did the promised protector become the tormentor? One member of our local government has stated on the record they find citizen participation at council meetings to be mostly problematic. Citizens have been gavelled down, told to stop speaking, and been threatened with removal or arrest, sometimes in clear violation of state law. Over time, there have been repeated efforts to cut down on the amount of time for citizens' voices to be heard. And recently, it was indicated the town council was not going to be answering any more questions from citizens. If I should be entrusted with your support, I will do everything in my ability to ensure the real power of our local government is restored to citizens. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jonathan Blake, and I'm running for Poetry Town Council. Realizing poetry faces challenges from outside as well as within, I petitioned my Lord as to the action I should take. I considered which qualifications a candidate should have, and these were my results. Does my intent or vision align with poetry? Yes, I believe it does. Have my past actions always protected the town of poetry? Yes, they have. I've petitioned for my small property to be annexed into the whole town poetry. Do I have the character of heart or integrity for poetry? Yes, I do. If you question this, just ask the many people that know me from my 19-year relationship with this very school. Will my family and friends that live in the area support me? Yes, they will, and subsequently did when I asked. Do I have experience for the job? Yes, I do. Life experiences. There are many, from learning a trade to being on a team that set a world record, to developing my own process for ceramic decal printing, to writing code to speed up manufacturing processes, to buying a business, and with my wife, which is our greatest and most rewarding experience, raising our 3 children. I've never done any of these endeavors before, and they did not happen without failures. But I committed myself to the success of these and more. Most importantly, could I run a campaign and hold to Christian principles? Yes, I can and will. These were my thoughts as I ask for guidance in my prayer. In closing, I'm afraid that I've seen the values I hold dear erode away in our current culture and realize they may not be popular. My commitment to the community of poetry is to honor these values. With this in mind, I seek your support for the May 6th election. Thank you.
That's
Is that
everybody.
everyone? Wow, okay, here we go. Instead of me interrupting every single one of you, well, no, I think there were a few I didn't interrupt with 15 seconds. I'm just gonna raise my hand, okay, when you have 15 seconds left. All right, we move into the question portion of this evening. I will have you draw all 4 questions, and you will speak on them one at a time. So you're not going to speak on all 4 at one time. We'll do one, and we'll do the next, and we'll do the next after each person. So we'll use the same speaking order. Does that make sense? All right, and I'll time you, but keep in mind, it's 1 minute. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. I'll come up, and then we'll draw our questions.
Yeah, no, we're doing switching yours. Do hers first. Do hers. That's it.
Okay, is everyone, you have a duplicate? Has everybody got? Okay, make your certificates, but I found.
Yeah.
And
I got another thing.
there's one more.
There.
Okay, we're good. All right, first of all, I had nothing to do with these questions. I did not prepare them. I really don't know how they were prepared, but the bottom line is that each of the candidates had a fair drawing. If we had a duplicate, which we had a few, then they handed those to me and then they redrew. So as far as everyone tells me, they do have 4 separate questions. We will start with the mayoral candidates, and you can choose whichever question you want. I want you to read the question because we want to save time today. I will not start your time until after the question is read, okay? And then it's 1 minute, and then I'll raise my finger at the 45 seconds. Deal? All right, let's begin. You're first, yes. Let's pull that mic. Let's pull that. Make sure you see how far my mouth is from the mic. Everybody needs to be about that far because if you get back here, it's going to be harder for people in the back to hear. So bring your face up closer or bring the mic towards you. That way everybody can be sure and hear everything you have to say.
Can you guys hear me? All right. Now that poetry is incorporated, do you support zoning regulations? If we want to keep developments out of poetry, we will have to have some sort of protective planning. However, those decisions should be made in a town hall style meeting where citizens' voices are heard, not in town council style meetings where citizens' voices are limited currently. I ultimately think that we need to assess exactly every citizen's main concern so that way we can make better decisions together. And we're going to be able to do that whenever they can actually come and speak and not be limited on time.
Okay, so my question is, if there will be much to do in the second term as mayor, what are 3 things you hope to accomplish? I want to defend our borders, refurbish our roads, and maintain our voice. As your mayor, I'm fiercely protective of those who want to try and tear it down, and the 74% majority of folks who wanted to incorporate. It is a sad day for the citizens in Terrell's ETJ as Terrell is voting today on the forced annexation of over 6,200 acres, which is only 10% of what Terrell says they will do. So firstly, I want to defend our borders. The threat is real, not imaginary. Just a couple of weeks ago, the attorney with Hunt County said that after talking with the Terrell attorney, that it would be highly dangerous to try to disincorporate. Secondly, I would like to save our revenue from the sales and use tax for the refurbishment of 2.5 miles of road in Poetry and negotiate a great rates for such. I believe Councilmember Anderson is the best one to assist with this. His negotiation skills are top notch. Thirdly, for the first time ever, Poetry has a voice, and with that voice we can manage our destiny. We have a say with those who want to try and take advantage of our rural way of life. Let's keep poetry, poetry.
All right, we'll begin with the council. Number, same order.
For the record, I'm number one, but I just following along here. Okay, my question is, why do you wish to serve in the government of Poetry? My response is, I am invested in the town of Poetry and intend to live out the rest of my life here, God willing. My wife and I have plots down the road in Campground Cemetery, which are intended to be our final resting place. Poetry is not a stop along the way for me, it's home. There aren't a lot of people who can make that commitment. In 24 years of living here, I've seen countless numbers of people stopping in for a while, only to move on when opportunity or circumstance changes. Some had no choice in their decision to move on, but some did.
Okay, my first question,
Closer to the mic, please.
why do you wish to serve in the government of Poetry? I moved to Poetry 5 years ago to start a modest little farm on 30 acres. It's a slow, back-breaking work in progress, but I'm loving every minute of it. I want to serve on the town council because I want to preserve this small slice of paradise that I grew to love, and it's home, and I don't want it to change. I want to keep this town rural, a great place to raise a family, and the generations that come after it. Basically a legacy. I've never thought I'd have this opportunity in my lifetime. I have the experience in community service necessary to be an effective town council member, and I'll work hard to make sure your voice is heard. Thank you.
Surprise, I had the same question. Why do you wish to serve in the government of Poetry? Well, I bring 100%. We were asked to prepare 10 questions tonight. We're going to answer 4. My 10 questions and answers on paper, yes, I'm for incorporation, is back there with my biography. I am a strong person. I have a great deal of leadership. I want to bring that as to serve Poetry, to serve all. Primarily speak for those who are not have the voice to speak for themselves, whether it be children, seniors, people who have to stay in their home. I believe in all people. I'm very, again, passionate about people.
The question is, what makes you stand out from other candidates? Well, I have to say there's some of the candidates I really don't know, so I can't comment on that. But I can tell you a few things myself. One is that I'm running for the council for the last time. If I'm elected, that'll be 4 years, and I firmly believe 4 years is enough. We need new blood, new ideas, new people, and I would welcome somebody else taking my chair at the council meeting tables if I'm elected for the next 2 years. 4 years is enough. I think it's important for the town to have new ideas, new people, and because there will be new challenges coming up down the road. So how I stand out from other candidates is, I think, in that way. This is my last campaign.
All right, well, the question that I got is, if elected, you will serve a 2-year term. What changes do you envision over the next 2 years? I'd like to see no changes. I like Poetry the way it is. In fact, if we could just turn back time a little bit, that's what I'd be in favor of. So what I hope is gonna stay the same is 0 property taxes. I hope that stays the same. That's something I will fight to the death over. It's the only promise I'll make to y'all, because I don't like political promises, but I will never vote for a property tax, not even a 0.1%. There's your promise from me. I also hope we don't see a lot of development. It's gonna be really hard to fight against it. Texas is pro-development. There's a lot of lobbyists in Austin. It's really an uphill battle, but I envision us fighting against that and there being low development, even if we can't stop it completely. I hope our council has the same feeling and that over the next 2 years, we'll have people fight for that, and that the citizens are going to be able to participate and help us keep Poetry the way it is.
probably got one of the longest questions. What are your thoughts on political signs and guidelines that are required? Do you think it's important to have every little thing accounted for, and what punishments do you think should incur when the guidelines aren't followed? I do believe that it is important. Every one of us is running to be an elected official. We don't get to decide which rules we're going to follow and which rules we're not. There's been many instances over the last 2 years of missed deadlines, misinformation, or errors, and we can do better than that. As for punishment, listen, I don't think we should take people out and cane them. We're all learning on what we're doing up here, but I do believe that if the correction has been made public, those individuals need to make sure that they're doing their part to correct it and make sure they're in line with the law. Thank you.
What three things do you hope to accomplish most? So my goal for the next term, if I'm elected, would be to increase fiscal competence, increase road improvements, increase protection from housing developments who want to cash in, housing developers who want to cash in on our sacred lands. But furthermore, I want to continue collaborative efforts in this small town. I want to challenge the citizens for more communication and ideas. I would champion the idea of Haley to have town hall events that we can hear your voice. I would like to have more community events like the one hosted by Tim and Rose Smith that was very heartfelt, and a lot of good people got to meet each other that day. So I want to continue to foster a community heart.
The question is, if elected, you will serve a 2-year term. What changes to poetry do you envision over the next 2 years? With regard to the poetry community, the goal is as little change as possible. As for the town government, stop the secrecy, make every possible aspect of the town's business and decision-making process clearly visible to the citizens. No more secret committee meetings, and no council deliberations or decisions unless they comply with the Open Meetings Act. Bring the town into compliance with state law and its own ordinances and resolutions, and ensure the town is accountable to all citizens. I do not envision anything that involves annexation or disincorporation. Thank you.
Are you for incorporation or against it? Please state for or against in a one-word answer. For.
You know, I'm kind of impressed you guys are like meeting this 1-minute deadline business here. I mean, that one right there, I mean, really. Wow. Now remember, when I raise my hand, you still have 15 seconds. I'm not gonna come up and slap you upside the head, but I'll just say time at the 1-minute mark. All right, we're gonna do another round, starting with the mayoral candidates and then hearing the next questions.
Have you ever changed your mind on an issue after hearing the argument of the opposing side? If so, what was the issue and why did you change your stance? Well, if you ask my husband, I change my mind a lot and all the time. But I think he just probably wasn't listening to me the first time to begin with. But yes, I have absolutely changed my mind on an issue after getting more information. Last year we were remodeling our house and I told our contractor that I wanted a pocket door for our water closet, or I call it the toilet room. But he was like, no, you don't. I'm like, well, one thing about me when it comes to design, I know what I want. And so I'm like, yes, I do. And he started to explain to me that houses move, foundations move, and especially pier and beam houses like ours. So the pocket doors will eventually get stuck in the wall and will just not completely function at all. So after listening to the expert on the topic and hearing what he had to say, I changed my mind and went with a regular door instead of a pocket door that I initially thought that I wanted.
My question is, what do you see as the future for poetry? How would you handle growth? I envision poetry as a sea of wooded green surrounded by a sea of concrete. Kaufman County is the fastest growing county in the nation right now. I envision a quiet and rustic atmosphere, a sleepy little town full of ranches and ranchettes, with perhaps a few quaint cottage businesses where folks meet regularly and everyone knows their name. A real community spirit. I see it void of any additional light or heavy manufacturing in the area. I see it devoid of large box stores or high density housing and water treatment plants. That is what I envision. How do you handle that? By setting the example for our current and future generations to keep poetry the poetry we know and love. Tired of the commute, my husband and I at one time thought we might put our company here, but we realized that we don't even want that here. And if we're going to set the example, it starts with us. We also handle growth by not inviting companies in, not having an economic development center, but perhaps an ag development center. Encouraging our children and grandchildren to see the beauty of a garden. Encouraging our next generation to hold the line and not just sell out to the highest bidder, but think of its impact around them. Thank you.
All right, council member number 1.
Okay, my question is, what makes you stand out from the other candidates? Each of us brings different experiences and qualifications to the roles we're seeking, and there are a number of excellent candidates running in the upcoming election. I believe I'm one of those. I've lived long enough now to understand that I don't know everything and that there is wisdom in seeking wise counsel from others. As with many other of the candidates, God is at the center of my life, and His truth guides me more and more every day. Before God, I, like many others in the world, base my beliefs and truths on my emotions and the world's opinions, and a wild ride it was. I bring to the role many years of successful corporate leadership, along with quite a few years of farming and ranching and volunteer ministry roles to round me out. I bring my experience and my heart to the job, not preconceived notions of how it should be done. Thank you.
Okay, how would you implement a plan for a road repair? As far as government regulations go, we would determine, what roads we want to repair, do a study to prioritize based on condition, use, et cetera, determine scope, put out a request for proposal, get bids, and then follow through on the project. I think the real question here is probably, what do you want to do to our roads, or what does the town want to do to our roads? It's expensive to maintain asphalt roads. Do you want to repair them, replace them, or take them back to a more affordable gravel option, as many rural towns have done in lean economic times? Thank you.
What makes you stand out from other candidates? Love this question. If you've seen my signs, you know that. I'm tie-dye, I'm peace, I'm free-spirited. I'm thankful to a God that gave me parents that encouraged me to be fiercely independent, compassionate, and kind on those things, and that's what I want to bring to the town. I want to serve the people and bring those compassionate qualities.
The question is, how would you plan to involve residents in the decision-making process in the town? What is your opinion on citizen input at the meetings? I guess I'd address two ways. First, I think what we need, a big need is road repairs. I think we all see that. I've been out there 21 years and it's been a struggle. What I think we need, now that we've got our sales and use tax passed, and we will be getting revenue from it, we need to create a citizen council subcommittee that manage the roads and plans. The plans for the roads should be basically reflecting three things. One is things up near term, like less than a year, where we need to be addressing near-term problems. The second one is maybe 3 years or so, where we need more money and have to do a little more planning, and whether it's weather or whatever. And the third is the 5-year, the longer ones, which we need. But we need to do real repairs, not just fill potholes. And we need to do the repair work based on a scale of urgency, damage, cost, traffic, and safety. And this is something that I would have the committee do.
The question is, what do you think the biggest challenge facing poetry is specifically? Wow, there are a lot of problems. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna have to just focus on a couple. One is developers. I mentioned it's an uphill battle. You heard Kaufman County is the fastest growing county in the United States for development. That's crazy. We're gonna have to have fighters in there that are ready to get with the counties, create a plan where everything goes around poetry instead of coming right through us like they like to do. The other thing is our roads. They're not great, I'm gonna be honest with you. It's something that we could definitely improve on as a council. There's a lot of things we can do to address them, and it's important that we do because it's gonna be our biggest cost. The way we avoid property taxes is addressing the roads. And one of the biggest things is that the roads will eventually need to be reconstructed in some ways. There are ways to save a lot of money on that, like tumbling all the gravel under, and it creates about 75% of the density of a road. And then you just have to pay for the last 25%. You don't have to worry about things like getting all the gravel out of there. It can just save us a lot of money. So we can address those problems that we have, but road development is definitely up there on the list.
How would you plan to involve residents in the decision-making process in the town? What is your opinion on citizen input at the meetings? To start off, citizen involvement is crucial. We're all running for a government office, but this government is for the people. The citizens of Poetry opinions need to be heard, and I'm willing to listen. For me, the failure of a leader is to think that he knows everything. And I'll be the first to tell you, I don't have every answer. But we have people in this town who do have some expertise that we can lean on to help guide this to make the right financial decisions, to protect this town and accomplish the goals that we have set for us. Thank you.
Well, this one's kind of a softball for me. What is your vision for the town of Poetry? I've told this story in my bio, but for those of you who haven't read it, I want to retell it. At one of the P&Z meetings that I sat in on, a discussion ensued about the vision of the town. I explained to the P&Z committee that I do not have a vision for this town, I have a memory. This community has attracted every one of us for one reason or another. Many people have left the downtowns and come to this city. If I could hit pause on time, I would. With that being said, I know that doing nothing is not the answer. I agree that we will need ordinances to protect us, but we need to be careful on how we write those ordinances. I would like to look back in 20 or 30 years and say that we, the people, protected our oasis. It will take all of us, and I'm willing to hear from the people on how we protect our town.
My question is, what are the thoughts on political signs and the guidelines that are required Do you think it is important to have every little thing accounted for, and what punishments do you think should incur when the guidelines aren't followed? First of all, I'm a law and order person. Political signs should be in accordance with state law. That is not to say, however, that every little alleged violation should be handled by filing a complaint with the Ethics Commission. In the last election, people inexperienced in campaigning made some small technical violations, which resulted in complaints being filed down in Austin. This year, when similar mistakes occurred, at least one citizen kindly contacted the candidate, advised him of the issue, it was corrected. There was no involvement with people down in Austin. That's how neighbors treat neighbors. That's my preferred method.
What do you think the biggest challenge facing poetry specifically? The lack of productive communication between the citizens and mayor/council. I know we can do better. Starting with a higher level of mutual respect, having a more complete presentation of the details from all sides of the issues presented at town meetings, complete fact checking before making public comment, not repeating in public anything we haven't had the opportunity to discuss with all parties involved, and stop spinning the narrative for a single viewpoint. We all have to be involved in the solution.
All right, we're done with round one, round two, starting round three. Mayor candidates first.
Sorry, I'm short. What do you see as the future for poetry, and how would you handle growth? Well, my opponent just sat up here and told you that she has zero plans for any zero growth, but yet she just told some of her citizens in her store recently that she plans to expand soon and add a whole strip center behind her business that includes a nail salon, a barber shop, and all those things. So how can anybody sit here and say that you're not for growth, but yet here you are trying to grow your own business? You don't want to make it attractive for others, but you want to make it attractive for yourself. But my plan is that we need to be listening to our citizens, like I said, once again, is that in town hall meetings and not in town council meetings, and hear what everyone else has to say about the direction that they want this town to go in, so we can make those decisions together and move in the direction together.
Now that poetry is incorporated, do you support zoning regulations? I do not support much zoning. I support a few common sense rules to keep large box stores and undesirable business such as RV parks, high density housing, electrical substations, rendering plants, and wastewater treatment plants out of poetry. But we need to always be good to our people. If Aunt Polly wants to open a quilting shop, she should be allowed to without jumping through a bunch of environmental or other studies by some overpraised town council. A few in the P&Z wanted to make crazy rules for a town. I'm not a fan of that. I've been taking a survey to find out what people want. Surveys showed that 71% believe that having only small shop owners such as hair salons, pet grooming salon, a bake shop, coffee shop, or cafe is acceptable. I am open to doing further canvassing and face-to-face conversations to see what the people truly want. Thank you.
Okay, back to question number 5, which reads, how would you involve residents in the decision-making process in the town? And what is your opinion on citizen input at the meetings? This is a great question. Involvement can't be, in my opinion, limited to those who get the ear of council members or the mayor alone. I believe a piece of the solution is to slow down and give both the council and the citizens time to discuss and consider topics coming before the council for weeks and months in advance, not hours in the confines of a council meeting. We also need to take the time to host more council workshops and town hall meetings to allow citizens and council more opportunity to interact and gather thoughts and information. I value the input of citizens at our town council meetings, and I find most of them to be directed at holding us accountable and doing a better job leading our town. In 2 years on the council, I've never felt threatened by anything a citizen had gotten up and said, and more often than not, I've been able to cut through their anger or passion to find their valid point. I could even make the case that on a few occasions, citizens' input has kept us from making less than perfect decisions. Thank you.
If elected, you will serve a 2-year term. What changes to poetry do you envision over the next 2 years? I want to preserve poetry as the small rural country town I know and love. But just as the federal government's created to protect our borders and regulate interstate commerce, I want to protect our borders from encroaching jurisdictions, maintain good relations with the same, and repair and rebuild our infrastructure, namely these alignment-filling country roads. And whether that's going back to gravel or asphalt remains to be seen. I would also like to finalize Town Hall so that we have an official foundation or cornerstone from which the town can provide consistency and communication with all the people of Poetry. Meetings, announcements, including an electronic notification system for things that impact our community, like flooding on 1565, weather warnings, loose livestock, etc. Thank you.
I knew I'd get this question. How would you implement a plan for road repair? Well, I'd like to thank you, Simeon, for reminding me how stupid I am about roads. But I know budgets, and I know government budgets, and I know budgets that need to be held accountable. And you get bids, and you produce bids, and you set a budget, and you know where that money is coming from. It gravely concerns me that we are expecting to get sales tax starting April 1st, but we don't know what that looks like because we're not on the map yet. And you can't just go change your address. That concerns me. We need verifiable data to indicate where money is going to come from to pay for our roads. I can learn what surface needs to be used. Those things I can learn. What I can bring is a guaranteed, secure budget.
Question is, what 3 things do you hope to accomplish most? I mentioned earlier, first and foremost, is road repairs. It's desperately needed, and as I mentioned, we need to have a subcommittee that can manage that and manage all the issues and revenues. We also need to finish the town hall. We need to add, there's several things that need to be done. A septic tank needs to go in. We need the ADA ramp, and there is some work inside the town, building that needs to be done. That we need that because we need a place to do business as a town, as well as to have town meetings. The third thing is that I think we need to have more productive meetings. We don't need 4 and 5 hour meetings. We need it more efficient, and I think that will encourage more people to attend, more diverse opinions. I think it'll be good for the town to have shorter, more condensed, more focused meetings.
Similar to the question I had earlier, what is your vision for the town of Poetry? But before I answer that, sorry if I made anybody seem stupid. I mean, that's my bad. I'm sorry for that failure in communication. But as for visions, like I said, I don't want to change poetry pretty much at all. And one of the things I didn't get to mention first time around is zoning. We need to really make sure we don't have any restrictive zoning. I got my business out of Terrell because they're really harsh and they like to just burst into people's house. The fire marshal can just, walk in and act like he owns the place. And I just want to protect people's freedom around here. Zoning is one of the reasons I got into this position and ran. It's because I don't want any restrictive zonings for our neighbors. It's kind of like a big loaded gun, and unless you know how to use it properly, it can really hurt the people around us. So we don't want that. The only thing we might want to do, and I think we should do, is make it so that we can't split properties smaller than 2 acres. We can't do bigger because of the state laws. We can't make it so that it's only 5 acre lots, but maybe keep them 2 acres so the developers have a rough time.
My question is, why do you wish to serve in the government of poetry? The easy answer to that, this is my family's home. I want to preserve poetry for my son and future generations of poetry citizens. I also feel that I can be an asset to this town. With my work history, I've got experience with putting together long-range projections, capital plans, and also putting together a monthly P&L so that our citizens can see, have true financial transparency on a month-to-month basis. At the end of the day, we've talked about our roads are in dire need of repair, and over the last 2 years, I've asked repeatedly to see the plan, but I've never seen one. A mile of road is going to cost us somewhere between $75,000 and $150,000. We need to sit down and we need to understand how we're going to meet that commitment before we have to take our first mile of road.
Are you for or against incorporation? Please state for or against, one word answer. One word, for. I've stated this fact before and I will state it again. During the 2020 incorporation drive, my name's on the petition, one of 83 people. When I signed the petition to incorporate, the map had to be redrawn by Dorothy Dillon to include my house. I was outside the city limits and would not be allowed to vote. I'm the only house in this entire town with a 511-foot setback because I asked for it. This town is made up of a majority of 311-foot setbacks, a few 411. I'm the only one, and I have proof to show that. So I think it's very apparent that I am for incorporation.
What do you think is the biggest challenge facing poetry? Certainly one of the biggest challenges is reforming the adversarial management style that promotes division in the community and treats many citizens and at least one county commissioner as enemies. This adversarial style has also manifested itself in unequal treatment of citizens at town hall meetings. Certain citizens are permitted to violate the rules of decorum with impunity, while other citizens are interrupted, gabbled down, and told to stop speaking based on their views. This has had a negative impact on poetry's sense of community. All citizens need to be treated equally and with common decency.
What 3 things do you hope to accomplish most? To me, there appears to be challenges in these 3 areas: communications, road improvement, and controlling growth. We can improve communication between citizens and mayor by raising the level of respectful, productive communications. Not that all comments have to be in favor of the decisions being discussed, but to use our energies toward a positive, productive resolution. I've witnessed this in my own campaign when the community pointed out my error, offered a constructive solution, and then volunteered their time to implement the solution. Now that we have a timelier budget reporting and a new revenue source, this will allow the development of a road maintenance and improvement plan, preserving property owners' rights while limiting unwanted growth.
Here we go for the last round, and then I'll have a few remarks before we close. All right, starting with the last remarks from our mayoral candidates.
How would you increase revenue without implementing a property tax? We should be more concerned with saving the revenue that is currently coming in. Currently, every time we get money in the bank, there's an item put on the agenda to spend it. $5,000 here, $5,000 there. We're gonna $5,000 ourselves into bankruptcy, as Dave Ramsey would put it. And it is always an emergency that we have to spend it that day. Let's slow down and be more thoughtful with our funds and spending. Let's quit trying to generate more income. More income for the town means more taxes or fees put onto our citizens. Let's save a little nest egg so that we can put it towards the important things like road maintenance. You will not catch me emailing our county officials to ask for property values so we can levy a future property tax days after being sworn into being mayor. Thank you guys so much for your time tonight.
My question is, have you ever changed your mind on an issue after hearing the argument of the opposing side? If so, what was the issue and why did you change your stance? Yes, several times. One was the contract for electric services for the town hall site. My former opponent stated that it is really difficult to get out of a long-term contract in one of the meetings in which I invited him to speak up on the matter. He suggested the one-year contract only. So I was for that. And indeed, the council did end up voting that way. At one time, we were thinking about moving our agriculture-based business from Forney to Poetry. Although it is a small business with only 10 employees, we realized that we just do not want that type of business in Poetry. We also want to move forward and set an example, so that should start right here. My favorite thing about this job has been to hear from citizens' concerns and try to resolve problems with them. But I do wish the ones who show up at meetings would be more amicable. It is mutual respect which is needed. We are unpaid public servants, not public punching bags. I've given out my personal cell phone number and emails. I look forward to hearing more about why you are Poetry proud. Thank you.
Okay, back to question 10, which reads, what are your thoughts on political signs and the guidelines that are required? And do you think it is important to have every little thing accounted for? And what punishments do you think should incur when the guidelines are followed? I'll repeat some of what's already said. All of us running for office are at least a little familiar with the Texas Ethics Commission. They're given oversight of campaign goings on here in Texas. They point us to the TxDOT rules, the Texas Election Code, and other things that impact political campaigns and signs. Since none of us are professional politicians, this has been a learning journey for all. That point's been made. I believe this question points at compliance with political sign labeling and placement, in which case I say we should all follow the rules. And when one of us doesn't, we should at least make an effort to let that person know where they're out of compliance. In my opinion, our first reaction should not be to call the law or the Texas Ethics Commission, as some have done in the past. Especially as leaders in our town, we should set an example of working together wherever possible. If we don't, what incentive is there for citizens to? Thank you.
Okay, my last question, are you for incorporation or are you against it? Please state for or against a one-word answer. For. I voted for incorporation. We are incorporated. The majority voted for incorporation. I still don't understand why this is even a question with annexation looking over your shoulder. At the end of the day, I don't want to be Terrell. I don't want to be Royce City. I want to stay Poetry and protect my town from the encroaching municipalities.
How would you plan to involve residents in the decision-making process in the town? What is your opinion on citizen input at the meetings? I have news for you folks. Poetry Proud versus Disincorporate is not the biggest voice of this town. As an employee of Terrell ISD, we have a great number of people who deserve a voice, and they're frightened to speak forward. They don't want to step forward and say one way or another. We need to reach out to folks. We need to climb above the arguing and blame. We need to get above it with a higher order of thinking. We need to ask better questions, and we need to answer them with better plans in mind. We need to include everyone. As far as citizen input, believe absolutely, we have to have citizen input. We are representing you. We're not here to make a decision for you. We represent you.
My last question is, what are your thoughts on political signs and the guidelines that are required? Do you think it's important to have every little thing accounted for? And what punishments do you think should incur when the guidelines aren't followed? I have to say, I think this is a learning experience for all of us. We're not professional politicians. And of course, all of us have made mistakes. But what we need is better information on what should go on the signs as well as other political issues. And that's something that I think should be a focus for the next election. I do not think there should be punishment for errors or omissions. I don't know anybody here on the council that's running that does this to have any kind of gain. If we made a mistake, it's a mistake of something that we did, just not knowing the rules. But in the future, we do need a better list of the rules and guidelines for future candidates. And I think that will resolve itself. I think that's what everybody wants.
All right, and my last question is, what makes you stand out from other candidates? And I know I kind of said this already, but I think it's my actions specifically. Y'all go back and look now that y'all seen me for 2 years as your councilman. Go back and read the minutes, go back and look at the videos. You've seen that I stay true to my word and I fight for the things that I said I was going to fight for, and I got the energy to do it. I co-wrote the comprehensive plan, which really emphasizes property rights, and it's kind of the vision of poetry that we voted on as the council. And it emphasizes property rights, low development, low taxes, and that's the things that I'm pushing forward for. We all say transparency, and I've taken time to make sure that we're transparent as a council. I started at the online forum, and the council was nice enough to vote it in as the official forum, so that everybody can see these council conversations that we have. Instead of just emails going back and forth between people, you can actually witness it and then email councilmen about the things on it and just get people more involved. So I hope my actions are what hopefully help you vote for me on May 6th if you want me to continue. Thank you.
What changes to poetry do you envision over the next 2 years? As little as possible. Maybe some better roads. But I will tell you, what we're trying to do is very unique. Every other town in Texas is trying to figure out how they grow and grow faster. There's no roadmap for what we're trying to do. It's going to take everyone on this council. It's going to take every one of our citizens. We're going to have to lean on you. And if you give me the opportunity, I can tell you that I'm up for that challenge. But it's something that's dear to my heart. And at the end of the day, I want to protect this for my son and for yours. Thank you.
How would you plan to involve residents in the decision-making process of our town? Involvement is what I've always fought for. I do not have to agree with someone to be able to listen to what they say, which is why I have been fighting for citizens' right to speak on every agenda item. There have been recent conversations on how to reduce the time spent at council meetings. Some of my candidates up here that oppose me want to cut agenda item discussion by citizens. I'm for working with council to develop ways to better use our time, and one of those is to move public comments to the beginning. I am not currently for removing citizens' ability to speak on every agenda item. We are a new town, and admittedly, we do not have everything figured out. I want to hear from you at the same time that we are discussing the issues. I want to give you a quick breakdown. Do your own research. Go onto YouTube and time it. Citizens speak for 13 to 18% of the meeting. Council, 38 to 43. Divide that by 5. The mayor speaks for 44% of the meeting.
Time.
The question is, how would you implement a plan for road repair? At first, I wouldn't threaten either of the county commissioners who have authority over the areas included in the town. I would work on building relationships between the town and these county commissioners, not tearing them down. I would explore all options for gaining the funds needed to repair and maintain the town's road, including the possibility of grants. And I would like to conclude tonight by saying I am so happy there was no gavel present at tonight's meeting. And I would like to know, are you available on the third Tuesday of every month? We can talk later.
That sounds like a pretty good question.
How would you implement a plan for road repair? To begin, we need to confirm that budget numbers allocated for road repair and improvement are set at a level consistent with town income. Secondly, we need to get an accurate condition of all roads by prioritizing the analytics of the roadbed condition, current damage, traffic density, drainage cost, and other factors. We can develop a timetable with a strategy that will meet decided goals. Last but not least, present this plan to the citizens for review and input. And also, on behalf of all the candidates and myself, thank you, Dr. Haran, for hosting us, and thank all of y'all for coming to listen to us.
She's a school dog. She thinks she needs to be involved in everything. Well, if you had seen this place earlier this morning, before Chris Brown and Miranda Cawthorn helped me, this whole stage was covered with our Mystery Theater sets and props. And I went, that would be a bit ridiculous for this event. So we worked very hard. It's all behind the middle curtain, and we'll pay back after we finish tonight. I think we need to give a round of applause. Oh, also my husband, Sandy, which I don't know if he's still here, he got the sound going for us and worked on the internet. I don't think I could do much without him at my side. But I do want to do a round of applause for the candidates, hold on, because I think that they were very well spoken. I think that they were able to present their position very well and cordially. And I want to thank you guys for all coming, and I'm very happy to host any time in the future that we need to do any town meetings, or, you know, the city hall that you're talking about is pretty small, but if you ever need to have a big night where people come in and visit with candidates or whatnot, the school, I mean, this gym is available for the community. So again, a round of applause for the candidates. Least, I don't want to put all these chairs away, but we do have some racks back there, so if you could take your chairs and put them on the racks, I'd be most appreciative. Thank you again. Good night.